We're here at the red carpet premiere of The Dark Tower. Check our interviews with the cast.
Good. The movie coming out after 8 years of development. Why are you excited for fans to see about this story?
Well, look, there's millions of fans that are disciples of this book, obsessed with these novels. I think and hope that we did them service by getting the essence of what Stephen King put on the page. As well, though, like myself, I never read a page before I read the script. And I remember reading the script and going, this is worth making a movie about, a summer blockbuster about, if you've never read a page. And it stands on its own that way as well. So, hopefully you're going to enjoy it. It's a great ride. Hopefully the true fans are going to see. We left a lot of nuggets in there for them to see that they'll know about, that some people that didn't read the books won't know about. And at the same time, it lives on its own. If you never read one page, hopefully you're still going to have a great ride.
Well, Man in Black is worse than the devil. That's what it says in the movie. How much fun was it for you playing such an evil character?
Oh, man, there's so much freedom in it. You know, the devil's in the yeses, not the no's. The infinite yeses. And that was fun to sit there and go, throw your conscience to the side, and let's just imagine here.
What made you want to play an evil guy at this point in your career?
Fun, the bad guy's fun. I mean, it's like I said, the freedom of it. You know, it's much harder to define the hero today than it is to define the bad guy. And I just wanted to find somebody who didn't necessarily. I wasn't looking for a guy who went through a big arc. I was looking for somebody who's like a lightning bolt of evil, and just stick with that and have a good time doing it, and do it with entertainment and aplomb.
Did you try and make him less one-dimensional in any way, or?
No, I mean the script was there. What Stephen wrote, you know, is what I tried to give. You know.
So what attracted you to this film, this project?
I was a huge fan of the books. Basically, I read the first Dark Tower novel when I was a teenager, and I've been following the novels for 25 years. So it was a pretty clear attraction.
Clearly, this series encompasses a massive universe within the Stephen King universe.
Yeah.
What are some of the difficulties of bringing that to life on screen?
It's very difficult, but the way we sort of solved it was to only tell the beginning of the story in this film. We didn't try to make the whole journey or bring all the elements of all the books. We only were trying to introduce in a cool and fun way the characters in the world, and then if this works out well, we can start telling the rest of the story.
So you would say that there are possible sequels to this film?
Yes, I would say so.
Awesome, that's great to hear. What are some of the movies that inspired this film?
For me?
Yeah, when you were making some, did you watch any movies to get inspiration?
My greatest inspiration was probably, weirdly, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, because that's a film which is also about a man who strongly believes in something that nobody else believes. In the beginning of this film, Jake, the kid, he strongly believes that there is a gunslinger and another world, but nobody else believes. Everybody thinks he's crazy. So I had a little bit of that feeling.
I think one of the things that makes the Game of Thrones series so great is that there is no true good and there is no true evil. And I saw that this film was based off The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which has good, somewhat, evil, and then something in the middle. How did you mesh the lines of what is good and what is evil in this film?
I think you will. I think what Roland in the beginning of the film, our hero, is not really just a good guy. He's a guy who's very darkened. He purely wants revenge. He doesn't care about the world or about anybody. And then he meets the kid, Jake, and then he may or may not change. But that's where we're going, and I think that even in the further stories, there's a lot of gray areas to what's good and what's evil. But I would say that this is still a very classic story about good versus evil.
And last question: how was working with Matthew and Idris?
It's pretty damn cool. They're both amazing guys. They're very down to earth. They're both passionate. I think they were the perfect embodiment of their characters that they played, and it was just a great pleasure.
The Dark Tower is a very interesting series. What attracted you to it, and why do you want to make this movie?
I just loved The Dark Tower from the time I read the first book, which when it came out. So probably before you were born. what's unique about this particular corridor of Stephen's work is that it is not only does it intersect all his other pieces, it also is about family. It's about the creation of family. How do we, who do we hold true? Where does our fidelity lie? And I think that's a really interesting question, especially today.
And you bring up the concept of family. Are there any other stories that inspired you when you were writing this film?
Well, a lot of Stephen's other stuff, sort of intersected, as I said, narratively, but it also does emotionally. So you can sort of feel the sort of familial pressure of The Shining in Jake's, familial situation. The sort of loneliness of Roland. I harken back. There's something about the character of Stu in The Stand. There's a lot of Stephen-esque themes. I mean, it's all his keyboard. So, there's a unifying emotional tenor.
And you bring up a good point. It's a massive universe you attempt to bring to the screen. And you helped write this as well. So what are some of the difficulties in making that a reality?
We've been trying to get it going for years, and the script has taken many different forms. In its earlier forms, it was larger. It had Eddie and Susanna and Oi, the Billy Bumbler, all these characters that are part of the original quartet, if you know the books. And what we ended up doing was refining it down so that it's actually essentially a two-character story. It is really Jake and Roland, and that allowed us to figure out how to go through it.
Would you say Jake and Roland are two sides, not Jake, the Man in Black and Roland are two sides of the same coin?
Well, I think it's interesting that you say that. No, I don't think so. I think that Roland and Walter are actually forces of nature, and I think are actually fundamentally opposed.
So when you describe them as forces of nature, then there is no good or evil to their characters, and it's just who they are then, right?
But good and evil is real. Not everything is relative. Most things are relative, but good and evil are actually just, in my view, empirical truths.
That's a very interesting take on it. So how was working with Matthew McConaughey and Idris Elba?
I've known Matthew for many years. Idris I've known for a while too. It's delightful. One is very lucky to get two people like that.
Tell me a bit about your character.
Jake basically is your kind of average New York teenager who has these visions of different worlds of two, Roland and the Man in Black, and he's trying to figure them out. And no one believes what he's saying. Almost like you've got a child in school who's got an illness, and everyone's mocking you. And he's kind of brought into an environment which is unexplored, and just things happen, you know what I mean?
It's definitely a magical world that this story takes place in. What's your favorite thing about playing a character in this world?
I think the favourite thing was actually, it felt like I was in a different universe or world when I was filming it, because I went to South Africa, which I'd never dreamed of going to, and it's all these crazy cliffs and views of mountains and desert, and I was in there and I was like, God, I feel like I was in mid-world. It was crazy, so that's how I love going. Yeah.
And you spent a lot of time with Idris Elba in this film, right?
Yeah.
And also, I guess, some student Matthew McConaughey. How was that?
I mean, I was mad. You hear about all these names and then find out they're just real, genuine people, and it's so nice to meet and work with people who are nice, because they make you feel comfortable, having never been in anything like this before.
And you work with Nikolaj as your director. He's definitely a more unconventional director. How was working with him?
Working with Nikolaj was amazing. He always seemed to get the best out of me, and when I might have days where everyone does, where a bit off, he'd always bring out the best performance up, and he was just a really nice person, and I loved working with him.
And what was your favorite scene to shoot?
Favorite scene? It's got to be first, just every scene which is in the mid-world was just incredible, because so much.
And if you could take one thing off set, what would it be?
One thing off set would be just to always love what I'm doing, because it's mad, it's crazy.
So tell me a little about your character in this film.
My character's name is Timmy Mucci. He plays Jake Chambers' best friend, and as all these things and dreams are happening to Jake, and he's his best friend, he comes to me asking me for help and advice, and I just think he's crazy. I'm like, yeah, this is not real. And then there's a part in the film where I'm like something I realized, I'm like, wow, this is really happening. He's not lying, and then then I remember, wow, I should have listened to him. So, but it's that's my character. He plays his best friend, but So yeah.
Cool. The first time I met you was at the premiere of a movie called Little Men,
Yes.
and that was a very small independent film.
Yes.
This is a much bigger picture, production picture. How's working on a movie like Little Men compared to a movie like this?
Well, personally, I try to look to all my films the same way. I remember 3 rules: if you just know your lines, you're passionate about what you do, and you put 110% to your work, you can't ask for much more. But it's a little like once I did Little Men, that being my first film, it was nerve-wracking. This just being a major motion picture was a lot more nerve-wracking. But once I got on set, I felt like, the director, the producers, the assistant directors, Idris, Tom, they were all just they all helped me out. They all listen, this is just relax, be yourself. And it really did help me out moving forward on.
How was working with Nikolaj? He's definitely not an American-style director, so how was that?
It was a lot of fun. Nikolaj gave me a lot of pointers and a lot of help with some of my lines and giving me different vantage points, different ways to do things, different point of views of it. And it really did help me out with my character and to do the best I could in that movie.
Are you a big fan of Stephen King's work?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Did you watch any movies to prepare for this role? I know this film was based a lot off Lord of the Rings and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
I watched half of Lord of the Rings, and but really what I did was I read the first Dark Tower book. That's what I did.
Cool. And what was your favorite scene to shoot?
Favorite scene to shoot was definitely my earthquake scene, where I find out I think it's an earthquake, and then I find out it's not an earthquake, and he's not crazy.
And how was working with Idris and Matthew? Did you learn anything from them?
Idris, I learned a lot from Idris. Helped me he told me, listen, this is a business where you got to be yourself. You cannot be anyone but yourself. And if someone wants you for not who you are, then they're not worth it. And Idris told me just be passionate what you do, never give up on your dreams, and just always be there. And he was just a great mentor, and it really helped me out.
So tell me a little about your character.
I play Jill, and she's sort of a henchwoman of the Man in Black. Yeah, she's a bit Stepford wifey.
Oh, that's quite interesting. Did you play a lot with Abby Lee?
No. I had my scenes. I had a scene with Catherine Winnick and a scene with Matthew McConaughey.
How was working with Matthew McConaughey?
It was intense and wonderful. He is a very focused person, and he's very, very tall, so it was a little intimidating, but he was great. He was very present.
You were getting a lot of that. He was very intimidating as well from Abby.
He just radiates a sort of, he has an air of movie star. So.
Well, you go up the St. Mary too.
Really?
High praise. Yeah. It's fun talking to you.
Made my night. Thank you.
How was working with Nikolaj? He's definitely a more unconventional director.
It was awesome. He is just from the first meeting of him, because I didn't meet him until I got to South Africa, actually. So warm and friendly, and he just made the whole environment a safe space to sort of be weird. And I felt very fortunate to get to work with him.
What was your favorite scene to shoot?
Well, we did shoot a scene back in New York where I was running into traffic. And I will say that was very frightening in the moment, but pretty cool when you think about it, that they shut down a whole avenue so that we could run across it. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
And do you have anything interesting you're working on right now?
I'm doing a play, actually, at off-Broadway at the Playwrights Realm. It has a very long title, but it's called The Rape of the Sabine Women by Grace B. Macias. Yep, it's gonna be.
So tell me a little about your character.
Tarana is the name of my character. She is a servant to the dark side, so she's Matthew McConaughey's character's right-hand woman.
What was your favorite part about playing this character?
Working with such elite people, working with Nikolaj and with Matthew. I mean, it's not really about the character per se, but on the film, a lot of it had to do with the director and Matthew. That was the main reason.
You've worked on a lot of great movies so far, like Mad Max. And how was working with Matthew McConaughey or playing off of him?
He's fascinating. For me, the most becoming thing about Matthew is his work ethic, and he's just so he gives everything that he's got to a role, and he doesn't you know, he doesn't screw around. He's like there, and he's willing to do whatever it takes.
What attracted you to this Stephen King work out of all of them?
Well, I'm attracted to many of them, but this one is in many ways impossible to adapt, which made it a great challenge. And it's just an awesome story. It's about good and evil. It's about hope. It's about faith, and it's about storytelling. And so all of those things are things that are all very important to me. So.
What were some of the difficulties you had? Because I know it's 8 books, and it also has references to many other Stephen King works, so that makes an incredibly difficult universe to build. Yeah. What are some of the difficulties in building a universe like that?
We made the decision early on that we couldn't satisfy all of that, so we sort of identified to us what were the themes and what was an access point for audiences, and tried to focus on that, and then pick and choose the elements from the book. The books, by nature, are a story that's told time and again and again and again and again. And ultimately, over the course of the books, you realize that this is just one of many journeys to the tower for Roland. And so we're telling another journey to the tower for Roland, using elements that exist in all the books.
One of the good things in a lot of stories that there's no true good and there's no true evil. In this story, would you say that Roland is definitely good versus Matthew McConaughey's character, the Man in Black, being definitely evil?
They're definitely more close to those poles, but evil believes they're operating for good reasons, and good sometimes has a crisis of faith.
And I know this was also inspired by The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Is there a third character that's going to impact this movie?
The Ugly would be me if I had been in the movie. So the answer is there is a third character who's at the center of this movie. I would not call him the Ugly. I would call him the Innocent.